Hello, everybody. Welcome. This is the Ace Trainer Podcast. My name is Jaws, joined by Rose, as always, and this is episode number 3. Bit of a different style of episode this time around. I'm excited to get into this one because it's less focused
hmm
on news around different products and everything else coming out, more around discussions about the current competitive scene and the collector's effects on the actual card market. But we'll start with the competitive scene first because there has been some news, or maybe lack of news and announcements recently, Rose.
Yeah, I think that I want to preface this discussion by saying this is all constructive, right? Like I think that there are valid arguments on both sides, but essentially to give you context, Play Pokemon's social accounts like Twitter had posted something about the European International Championships registration and that it would be coming soon. In a reply to one of the tweets on that thread, Play Pokemon had also said, as soon as we know or as soon as registration opens, we will let you know. So registration day rolls around, and I think what was really unfortunate about the registration timing of all of this is, well, there wasn't any news. So it never got announced on the official Play Pokemon Twitter. And so, I mean, people are sleuths, like they'll find everything. And so they cited that specific reply as like, oh, well, we were kind of expecting you to communicate, and I think that from there, a lot of valid criticism and a good discussion had come out of it, which is I think that there should be more communication. And also, here are some of the other things that are kind of a little amiss when it comes to the competitive season.
Yeah, I mean, lack of communication, especially with different types of sign-ups for competitions, like that needs to be out in the open, like front facing. This is how you sign up. This is how many players we can have signed up. This is the
hmm
event, how it works, etc. That needs to be at the forefront, like at the beginning of the page, the tournament page, whatever you've got it on. This is how you enter. This is what you need to do, and this is what you need to provide to us in order to actually enter a competition like that. And
Yeah.
not providing that at all is kind of bad. You have in turn like stopped a lot of players that potentially wanted to join in these competitive events from actually partaking because they missed this small window that was just completely unannounced.
Exactly, and I think that's what people were really upset about is the timing of everything was pretty bad. We had just had the Liverpool regional, and then on Monday, you're expecting that people are going to be flying home. I know a lot
Yeah.
of VGC players and TCG players that were at Liverpool just completely missed the registration window because they were on an airplane and they didn't have access to Wi-Fi to be able to get the messages from their friends that EUIC registration had opened. And what I think is really unfortunate about that is it's the European International Championships. And so you would kind of expect that you would want some of the top players from the Liverpool European Regional to be able to attend the bigger, more prestigious international competition for that region.
Yeah, I mean that's man, that really is quite painful because you are on a flight potentially with no communication to the outside world, and then you land and you realize you've missed it because you've received
Yeah.
messages from your friends. You open up your phone, it like there's a billion pings from Discord or whatever, and it's like, oh, you have to sign up, and like, da, 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 and then you're like, well, I guess I can't
Yeah.
anymore. Yeah, I mean, down the road, it feels like there just needs to be greater communication around these kind of things because ideally you just want a fair playing field for everybody, and like you don't want to have to go kind of snooping and being a sleuth like you were saying, trying to find how to enter when the deadline is and whatnot, because
hmm
regular players or like the majority of people I can't imagine are going to do it are going to be doing that at all. So it just needs to
Yeah.
be more clear communication. That could go for anybody in like the esports space as well, to be fair. Like communication number one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what everybody wants at the end of the day is just, some transparency about how many seats there are going to be because that, the discussion about the European International Championships actually sparked a larger discussion overall about this year's circuit.
Yeah.
The CP bars are the exact same to qualify for Worlds, and with less events and also the lack of transparency that there are going to be less seats available for players to participate at these events, it's got people scrambling and it's got people really nervous about whether or not they're going to be able to earn their Worlds invite if they didn't have CP banked before events ended in 2020.
Yeah, and what if you're one of those people that does and then you kind of miss these registration events to gain more? Like, I don't know. It's really frustrating, I can imagine, for a lot of people. And hopefully the Pokemon Company and the event organizers and everybody else kind of see this and go, okay, we kind of messed up here. So later down the line, we can I don't imagine I can't imagine they're going to redo this whole situation, over again. But later down the line, they can be like, okay, so we just need to be more transparent with players and maybe not have the registration open directly after an event that has just happened, when a lot of players that were in the tournaments will potentially be traveling. Like a week after would make a lot of sense. Like a
Yeah. Or
complete
like middle of
week.
the week.
Yeah,
It's
sure.
like maybe on Monday after the event, you're like, we're just hot off the tails of
Yeah.
Liverpool. Get ready for EUIC. Registration is dropping on Wednesday at this specific time.
Yes.
And here's like a question that I kind of want to ask you about is people were starting to try to think about solutions, right? Because no one wants to provide criticism without giving constructive feedback. And
Yeah.
so I appreciated these discussions because there were a couple of options that people saw. Do we go back to a lottery system, which basically is what we used to have, where you entered a lottery and then based on your number, you were given the opportunity to register? So there's that option.
Right.
The other option is doing waves of registration. So let's say you have one wave that opens up on Wednesday, another set of tickets goes live on Thursday, and another one goes live on Friday. And you have a select number of seats available at each of these. So that's another option. And then the third option is, just tell people a date and a time. That's the only window that you can register in, and that's it. And
Hmm.
so I'm curious to hear your thoughts about this because, with your experience in multiple esports and seeing registration processes for those, which one sounds the most appealing or like gives people the best chance at being able to compete at these events, do you
Um,
think?
I don't think option C, just a single date, is good, because there is just so it's just so easy to crash a website with this kind of
That's
thing,
true.
and then people just get owned for no reason at all. Like they don't even get a chance to get a ticket because the website is just down because of the amount of people flooding, and like the people that do make it, great, but then it's still a problem, and then they'd have to probably delay it or like re-put the website back up, etc. So that option I think is completely off the table. The wave system seems like the best option possible. The lottery system, to me, the problem with the lottery system is that it is literally random. So you could get to a point where a player who's been trying for so long will consistently not get invited to these events
That's
because, or
true.
like get to these events because they've just not been lucky. And like that never feels good, just to get unlucky, like in anything really, in games, in this kind of ticketing system thing. It just doesn't feel good at all, especially if you're like wanting to compete. um
Yep.
the waves makes a lot more sense. And I think the only benefit, by the way, for the lottery thing would be to stop people trying to scalp tickets. That's
Oh,
the
you can.
only thing.
So just some context about the infrastructure for registration is that if you register, you can't then pass that on to somebody else.
Right,
So
yeah.
even if
Got you.
somebody had paid you, you need a lot of personal information
Yes.
that is linked to your competitive account that in turn allows you to register.
Yeah.
So it at least stops that from happening,
I think, yeah, the
you
wave
know?
thing makes the most sense then. I mean, the lottery in a way is kind of like the wave thing in a way, because you're still gonna be crashing the website, I suppose, with the waves, but it will be, I guess, it won't be as bad as just like a single time. Like at least people will get another chance, and people that do get tickets, yeah, great. But next week or next few days, there's going to be another wave. I think that's probably the best way of going about things, honestly. Just
Mm.
going by all the events that I've kind of not taken part in, but I've seen and like commentated on and like different lands and whatnot. So yeah, Wave's probably the best.
Yeah, I think that's a viable option, but I think I was more in the camp that just having a set date and time, whether you crash the website or not, at least allows people to have more of an opportunity. You know how like concert tickets or like esports merch is dropped and they tell
Yeah.
you, here's when it is. Good luck. Like, may the force be with you or the odds ever in your favor. Um, and I kind of like that because I do think with the shadow drop that happened, a lot of players integrated into the scene, like, and very well integrated into the community that are parts of Discords, have a lot of friends that compete. They had an upper hand of being able to be a part of the tournament. They could register, they had a bunch of reminders or like pings, what have you. Even some people I know like called their friends to wake them up to be like, EUIC registration
It's
is open.
dropping.
Go, 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 go. Like
Yeah.
go. And I think it's like that's twofold. On the one
Hmm.
hand, y- you know, I think that means that you're getting some of the best players in the world competing. But on the other hand,
Yeah.
if they're not available to be able to sign up and you can't sign them up, like in VGC, we're missing the reigning European like the reigning European international champion.
Yeah.
He can't be
That
there.
is not okay. Like
Yeah.
not having like a world champion compete in your events. Like I'm not sure people should get special treatment in this kind of thing, but at the same time, like at least the top players I think should automatically get invites to tournaments in the same kind of circuit. That makes sense, and it's an additional little bit of prizing as well, I suppose.
Yeah, there is. We have a travel award system, which is great because if you're consistently performing well, you are considered a top player.
Yeah.
And so I love that Play Pokemon is able to reward those players by offering them a chance with a travel award to be able to attend these larger internationals as well as world championships. Um, I do think, though, that the largest constructive discussion that has taken place from all this is less seats. Like, why? You know, I think there are a lot of unknowns when
Right.
thinking overall about why certain decisions were made. And so, from my own personal opinion and standpoint, I think that there is a lack of understanding about the space because European International Championships is in a massive convention center in Frankfurt, Germany. It's huge. And so from that point alone, a lot of people had this idea that there would be a ton of seats available. But you then have to factor in that there, based on the COVID requirements, needs to be a dedicated area for people to eat and drink inside the venue. We are going to be accommodating 4 different games. We've got VGC, TCG, Pokken, and Go. There's probably going to be a way bigger stage. Like, I don't know what the streaming is going to look like for that, but I'm assuming there's a stream, and I'm assuming based on other international championships, there's going to be 4 stream areas, plus spectators, and potentially vendors for products and for food and drink. And then you also have the play areas, right? That have to be a specific amount of space apart to
Yeah,
keep it
that's
safe.
crazy. Crazy amount of
So,
space.
like, that's a lot of space that this event is going to take up. And I understand from that perspective why there was a limited number of seats and why the seat cap was probably lower than normal.
Yes.
On the other hand, for VGC specifically, and just as a competition as a whole, we have kickers to be able to get championship points. And the way that it works out for VGC, it kind of makes it seem like there's going to be 200 seats for masters and then 35 for juniors and 35 for seniors. 200 is right there, right at that first kicker, where instead of awarding CP to top 32 and having a top 8 cut, having 200 players competing gives you a top 64 CP distribution and you have a top 16 cut. It also ensures that you have 2 days of competition at an international championships. The likelihood of all 200 seats being filled the day of, I'm going to put that at a very, very low probability.
Right, yeah.
Travel issues, maybe you're not going to get let in because you don't meet the COVID requirements. So that's not good. That's not good.
Yeah. Like that's always going to be the problem though, especially at this time, like COVID requirements and having to keep to those local COVID requirements could change as well. Like it's
Of
definitely
course.
tough. Like it's definitely a tough situation, and I could only assume that Pokemon Company are doing their best to
Oh,
navigate
for sure.
this landscape. I know in a lot of esports scenes, like it's been very difficult to get things on LAN, and like with
Yeah.
crowds, probably not. But without crowds, yeah, it's becoming a more of possibility that it's actually going to happen. So it's definitely tough. I think at the end of the day, as long as you allow the more people to have access to these tickets that want to compete, the better. Better communication on why there is a limited number or like less events and limited number of people allowed the events as well.
Hmm.
Just like more transparency in general. Like it's not going to hurt anybody. It's just going to
Yeah.
make people understand what the Pokemon Company is currently having to deal with. So
Yeah.
transparency is key in this situation.
Yeah. I agree
Yeah.
with that.
Okay. Let's move on. We also wanted to
What do you want
talk
to talk
about.
about?
Yeah, this is taking the fucking shades off, the glasses off. Oh my god. My camera's gone a bit funny, by the way. Don't know why. It's really bad. I don't have a DSLR or anything, so apologies for that. That's why it's gone a bit funky. Now, we want to discuss the collector's effects on the
Hmm.
card market as a whole, which has been kind of I'd say a hotly debated topic for a little while now. And this started all the way back in 2020. And so I guess we'll start there, Rose, and work our way forward up
Yeah.
until this point. Now, in 2020, obviously, lockdown happened, and unfortunately, people were just stuck in their homes the whole time. And I think
Yeah.
this kind of spurred on this kind of Pokemon craze that happened. It, of course, started when Logan Paul decided he wanted to open up a first edition base set box for
Hmm.
his fans and just like stream and whatnot. And that just opened the floodgates to everybody. And while that's a good thing, it also let in the worst kind of people that you could possibly have in a hobby that has not seen that level of growth or that level of popularity since maybe like base like original like Pokemon came out, you know? Like that's the Pokemon company weren't fucking prepared for this. Like it's just not a thing, and it just exploded. And the problem I think a lot of people had was that scalpers and just people were just hoarding product to the point where you couldn't even go into a Target at all or like any kind of place, Walgreens or whatever,
No.
and see Pokemon on the shelves, or they just removed them completely. I know the Targets that I lived by, they actually just
Oh yeah.
straight up removed Pokemon product because people were queuing outside at 5, 6 a.m. to try and get one tin to then scalp. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I saw a Twitter post around the time that Target had decided to take the cards off the shelf, and it was just the line of people standing outside the door, and as soon as the Target opened, it was a mad dash
It was like
to
Black
the
Friday
card
kind of
section.
footage.
I know. And I was like, you literally do this every single week. And I will be the first to admit, like, sure, there was also sports cards people
Yeah.
in that crowd, and I think the majority of the people there were for sports cards. But that's not a new concept for people in that time, which is just standing outside of a store waiting for it to open and then just getting all the product that you can to resell it.
Yeah. It's like no one likes scalpers at the end of the day. That's not like concert tickets. Like, I don't know. even movie
Yeah.
tickets I've seen sometimes for like premieres, like for big films. No one likes that shit. Like at the end of the day, you're just a regular Joe Schmo, just trying to
Yeah.
get product because you enjoy the hobby and you've been opening it for years, or maybe you just started again. And that's the big like good green thing, good thumbs up. I was thinking of a green thumbs up. I don't know why. Green thing, good thumbs up thing. That was the big positive about this situation, that it did introduce a lot more people that were potentially into the Pokemon card game as when they were
Yeah.
younger, and it reintroduced them. And yeah, people got into the hobby, and I can imagine a lot of those people are still around, or at least some of them are definitely. The reason why I say some is that you can tell, especially with the product that's been pushed out recently, stuff doesn't sell out as quickly anymore, and it very much seems like a lot of the market is shifted because the popularity, surprise surprise, it's like any popular thing in the world, maybe it lasts for a year and then it kind of dies down. I remember
Yeah,
back
it's
in
like a trend.
2020. Yeah, exactly. 2020 was the trend of like doing Pokemon card stuff, 2021 as well, but like after that not so much. Like Vivid Voltage boxes, I bought one on release like I normally do,
Oh my gosh.
and I bought one for $100. I was like, yay, okay, can't wait to open this. And
Yeah.
then I bought another one. I was like, okay, maybe I'll open that again, at another point. Um, 3 days later, they are being listed for $180. A couple of
Yeah.
weeks after that, and I was living in California, I still am, but I was living with a few friends at a time. A friend of mine called Wyatt, who's also into trading cards, but Yu-Gi-Oh! We were just discussing this day after day, and like we were just seeing this Vivid Voltage booster box, the price just rising every single day. Like it capped out at $300.
Yep.
$300. Like
For
they're
like
like
a
what?
recent expansion,
Yeah,
that's
the most recent one.
absolutely nuts. Absolutely nuts. Oh my gosh. I think it was because that was one of the first sets that had just incredibly unique collector's items in it. Like I
Yeah.
think the amazing rares were such a cool concept. And I think a lot of people looked at those, myself included. I just went, that's really pretty. I would like to have one of those in my collection
And they
or
had the
be
big
able to play
Pikachu.
with it. And of course, like the secret chonk. Like, come on.
Yep.
Who doesn't want a secret Chonkachu? Like, crazy.
Yeah, and that's what exploded the price, I think, like, or at least
Yeah.
partially why. And then I really hope at that point people weren't buying them for like $300. Like,
I hope
I
not. Oh
really
my
hope
gosh.
people weren't actually giving into that temptation. And a lot of it too was because of COVID. Like, the factories where they're printing these cards,
Mm-hmm.
they were probably understaffed because of COVID restrictions, because this is when it just happened. Everybody was working from
Yep.
home. Supply chains also were being disrupted. So, like, this small thing, well, not small, I wouldn't call opening a base set first edition box a small thing, but that thing coupled with COVID just destroyed the card market completely. Like, we saw
Yeah.
rises in prices for literally everything across the Pokemon sphere like we've never seen before. And I'm sure it was
Yeah.
like that when base set came out in 1999, but the price equivalent, I don't think that was matched. There's no way people were selling base set booster boxes, because that was one of the most printed sets of all time. Like, Vivid Voltage is not the most printed set of all time, funnily
No.
enough. And then another
No,
aspect
it's
of this,
not.
Rose, and something that I care quite deeply about, and I've talked to you a lot about it before, is the vintage card market getting destroyed too.
Yeah.
Not only the prices are going up, but there were a lot of influencers and streamers and everything else like opening vintage products up, which, great. If you're into the card game, fantastic. It's really cool to see vintage product stuff opened. I personally love sealed stuff, and I love to see like at least a portion of it sealed, but I do love having the cards too. But they
Yeah.
were opening them to at such a rate, like a regular unlimited Team Rocket box was going for like $20,000. Like, compared to that today's prices, by the way, about 8,000. A
Yeah.
little bit more reasonable.
Like that's absolutely nuts. And I think there was also another aspect of that, which was sealed products got more expensive, but the cards in those sealed products actually got cheaper. And it was
Yes.
because there was a
Yes.
huge influx of singles being put into the market, because why not try to get a little bit of your money back, right? Like I think even if you, especially if you're like a giant influencer, okay, maybe you can do giveaways with those cards, or you could do extra content with those cards, or you could just sell it because your name is behind it, you know? And
Yeah.
maybe you're selling like an autographed version of the card or something like that. But yeah, like vintage cards on the market were way more expensive than what they are now
Yeah.
if you're just looking at singles.
Yeah, they're kind of ridiculous. And the influx of PSA graded cards too, which also like
Oh
shut down their
gosh.
submissions
Yeah,
because there
it
were
did.
too many people. Like the amount, I don't personally collect PSA grade. I like don't collect graded. I'm more like I love the raw cards, just having them in a binder,
Yeah.
like kind of thing. I don't mind picking up a graded piece if I really like the card. I got a Shining Jirachi that I picked up like a couple of years ago, which I was
Oh,
like, oh,
so
cool. I really
cool.
love Jirachi. I'll pick it up. It was a decent price before, obviously, this all stuff exploded. And the graded quantities of these vintage cards were just skyrocketing too, which, yeah, does push down the price a little bit. But then I think what frustrated me the most was a lot of these boxes, and especially, and this kills me because I love these sets and they're incredibly hard to complete, but like Aquapolis, Expedition,
Mhm.
Skyridge, those boxes, which are unbelievably hard to find, that are very expensive because they weren't printed in a ton. They were actually printed when Pokemon was at a lull. And so there weren't as
Yeah.
many, and they were getting opened, and the cards were just, they're not ending up with, I guess, man, maybe this is a little bit controversial to say, but I don't think they were ended up, those cards were ending up with the right people. I think they were ending up with people that don't really care about them, that are probably just kind of stuffed away now because it's not the hot thing anymore. And in some instances, people were like destroying a lot of these first edition cards. I
Oh
saw
no.
the Team Rocket Charizard
Uh,
first edition, or Dark Charizard, sorry, from Team Rocket first edition, getting literally lit on fire, and stuff like that was happening. They were cramming them in dirt and destroying these old vintage cards that I think a lot of people care about. And it was
yeah,
just
I
like, man,
remember that Twitch stream vividly. You know, I remember that group of people that was opening up all of those vintage boxes and just doing really horrible things to those cards. And wow, it was like a very popular stream, right? It had so
yeah,
many eyes on it and it was the talk of the day. But it was so disheartening because I think that really speaks to what you were saying about maybe these cards were ending up with the wrong people. Um, and you're right. I think you're right at the end of the day that some of these people were definitely doing it to be a part of the hot thing at the time.
for sure.
So,
For sure. And like
yeah.
that is at least when my main gripe with that, because it's like, well, I've done this thing, I've got the views for it, and now I don't need it anymore. And like a lot of the streamers, like they have a lot of money at the end. Like a lot of them live in Texas
Yeah.
that don't have the income tax, so, or like very low income tax at least. So it's not really anything off of their back. And technically as well, if you really wanted to go deep into it, they can write that stuff on their taxes, because
Yep.
it's, they can
Yes,
write
you
it off
can.
completely, because you are buying something for the purpose of entertainment and their stream. So like they're
Exactly.
losing even less than just like the face, like the just the face price of the box, for example. I
Exactly.
I don't mind at all if people are opening these vintage boxes and distributing the cards to the community. Maybe people that really want those cards, or like keeping them and just like actually having them there to have and enjoy them. I know like Charlie, like Moist Critical, he's got a framed lot of the base
Oh, he
set
loves
cards.
cards.
Yeah, like I think him especially, like obviously no shots at him whatsoever, because he really enjoys both Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon, and like has been
Yeah.
trying to collect the first edition cards for a long time. I watched one of his videos on it, and he was saying like he got a PSA 4 like, or like PSA 2 first edition Charizard, because like he didn't really care about the condition of it at all.
Oh,
He just like wanted it there just to say I've got it,
yep.
and that they're sort of framed and stuff. But like when it's being used as like a toy and just being thrown away with like this small part of history, is like, oh man, that's really hard. That's really, really fucking hard to watch. Like, I don't really understand what makes someone do that, you know?
Yeah. I think the other side of this, or I guess like a secondary effect, was scalpers made product harder to find for players that used those cards competitively.
Yeah.
And so I remember seeing a huge discussion about this. It's like, well, what is the Pokemon Company doing to ensure that we could get the cards we want to play with? And so I do like that there are avenues to be able to do this, right? Like Troll and Toad sell singles, TCG Player sells singles. And so if you're just trying to build the deck, it's pretty easy to get your hands on singles of cards and hope that you can kind of put together what you want, right? But there's also that aspect though, as a competitive player, that like it's fun to open up what you have and then try to work with that. Or at least it's fun from my perspective. I'm
Yeah.
not a professional
Like
player
everybody loves
and like
opening product, to be fair. Yeah.
yeah, it's fun. And so I think that that was another piece of the discussion during that time period where people were like, "Oh, well what about, like what about us? Like you're kind of
Yeah.
hanging us out to dry here a little bit when we, the competitive player, can't get access to the things we need to play the game."
To play the game. And like
Yeah,
Pokemon Company did have a good response to this. They did actually
absolutely.
open up another factory in order to produce cards, which is definitely a good thing. Like
Oh, for sure.
anything to help the supply chain, especially with trading cards. And Pokemon is a lot more popular now than it has been recently. And I think, like I mentioned at the top of this bit, there are more people and potentially players too that are into the card game now, that the trading card game, that weren't before because of this giant boom, which is fantastic because they're the players that you want to, and the people, the collectors that you want to keep around, because they're going to continue to buy product because the new sets are pretty cool and they like certain cards or they collect certain bits of the hobby, which is great. But I do remember around that time, because this was around Shining Fates, if I remember correctly. Let me bring up my
Yep.
Pokelector, by the way. I use this for everything. But this was around, so it was Champion's Path, Vivid Voltage, Shining Fate,
Yeah.
Battle Styles. That era of cards, just
So hard to get
obviously it exploded. But Champion's Path, especially the ETBs with the dark, no, not the Dark Charizard, sorry, the Shining Charizard, the Black Charizard,
Yep.
in the ETB, those were impossible to get. And I remember
Yep.
seeing on eBay just an absolute ton of like empty ETBs because people just wanted that card and like open the packs. And then if they didn't get hits, it was like, okay, whatever. And then I also saw a ton of these. It kind of enrages me to think about myself doing this to myself, but I'm like, I was almost actively looking for these screenshots and like photos of scalpers that had just boxes and mounds and mounds and mounds of
Yeah.
ETB product, both from Shining Fates and Champion's Path.
Mhm.
And they were using, and this happens not only in the trading card community, but like the sneaker community as well, and the baseball
Oh
cards and
yeah.
the football cards and stuff. But they use bots to buy off of websites that will like just constantly spam the website and ping the website to check if something's available. When it is, it will just start buying. It will just start buying and buying and buying and buying as much as it possibly can. Every single transaction. And this is where Pokemon Company implemented the 4 limit rule, which again, just it didn't matter because people have multiple accounts and they were just like permanently buying things. And then Shining Fate CTBs were like $100 plus. And Rose, in fact, let me go on TCG Player right now and have a look how much a Shining Fate CTB is, because I guarantee you it's nowhere
I mean,
near.
I
It's
don't think so.
nowhere near $100, or it might be actually just because no,
I
$52.
yeah. No.
$52 for an ETB. Let's say with tax it's like 55 or
And
56.
that's honestly not that bad, right?
Yeah,
Because when I think about it, like if you're buying something from a website and it's getting shipped to you, okay, yes, sometimes on TCG Player, depending on the store that you're buying it from, they will have a shipping cost associated with the product. But you're also saving some money of your own time to go to a store, wait to see if the product is there. So it's like you kind of get it immediately and you get the immediate reward from it.
yeah,
Um, but I think like in regards to the bots, I think this is another area that Pokemon Company really stepped up in terms of their response because I've actually been blocked from the Pokemon Center before, and it
as have
was because
I.
I was refreshing the
Yep,
page too often.
yep.
And I love that that was implemented into the safety network of the website because that's how you get to block the bots. And so, you know what? I'm okay with getting blocked because it means the system is working, and
No,
I'm
1000%.
super okay with that.
Yeah, and you can go on right now and funnily enough order like and
Brilliant
almost
stars.
any of the new stuff, Brilliant Stars, even the new Astral Radiant set too. You can
Yeah.
order. I'm looking at that right now because you can pre-order the Pokemon Center official Elite Trainer Box, which has the 10 packs instead of the 8, and
Yep.
it's not got a sold out button. Like, it's there,
Yeah.
it's available, it's right there. And like, this is a problem that I was worried about getting out of hand. I obviously in the back of my mind I was like, this is a fad. It's a fad. It will go away eventually, and we're at the point now, but it basically has gone away. But I was worried
Yeah.
that it would leak into the celebrations sets, the 25th anniversary, and that set was going to get printed, and it's probably still being printed to high heaven because it's a special 25th anniversary set. Like, when it stops getting printed, yeah, the prices are going to go up. That's just how it works with the Pokemon, with the Pokemon cards. But I was so worried that it would seep into that no one would be able to get product, because that set is supposed to be in celebration of the 25 years and bring back all these old cards, and they have the Charizard, funnily enough, but you can get them pretty easily. It's very easy to get celebration stuff. Unfortunately,
And that's
the one
awesome.
thing that did get hit was actually the 25th anniversary, the McDonald's one.
Oh,
Those
yeah.
those packs, I picked up a couple just from buying McDonald's at my local McDonald's. But like, I picked up a couple of those. I got the Pikachu, luckily enough, which is the one I wanted. And those packs I was seeing were going for like $15, like each
For 4
at that
cards.
time. Yeah, and there was a major
my
problem
gosh.
with that booster pack, by the way. If anybody hasn't seen, you can shine a light through that booster pack and see what's in there. I really hope they stray away from the paper wrappers, please.
Oh my god,
Just
I didn't even know that you could do
Yeah,
that.
you can. Go back to plastic
crazy.
wrapping. Don't do paper wrapping. Magic the Gathering learned that the hard way. It very bad. You can shine a light and you can see the cards. So yeah, just let you know, people who are selling you those booster packs was probably done that, so they know exactly what that holo card is. So I would steer clear of buying one of those packs unless it's relatively cheap, a few dollars maybe, and then you can shine a light through it, and if you got a card in there that you want, you can keep it. So yeah.
Oh my god. Well, what a good discussion today. Um, I feel like I really want to hear other people's thoughts on this too.
Yes.
And like, obviously the internet has been very loud about it, especially in the competitive community, and also kind of like when we've seen from the collector community as well. But anyone watching, anyone listening, put your thoughts in the comments below.
Yep.
And let us know what you think about the topics that we discussed today.
Yes, thank you so much for watching or listening if you're on Spotify. Our podcast now on Spotify too, if you want to go check us out there and just listen to us on the bus or whatever you're doing. We'll probably be discussing the new sets that are coming out next week. Astral Radiance, of course, are around the corner. But apart from that, it's been a good episode, and we'll see you later. Goodbye.